On this edition of the program, the future of tech and politics. Tom Merritt's on. Michael D. Cohen's on. We're going to blend it all up and show you the future. One push notification at a time. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for Friday, August 8th, 2025. Your old pal, Justin Robert Young, joining you here in Austin, Texas. Now, actually, I'm recording this a little bit early. I'm in Vegas currently, but the conversation we got for you is amazing. Lot in the news about the future of fundraising. This is something that we are covering here a little bit more than probably other political podcasts are covering, because I genuinely believe that this kind of stuff wins and loses races. When you look at the history of advantages, technological advantages, in a close race, it can be the difference. Now, sometimes that matters, sometimes that doesn't. But let's just go really, really quick through the history of this kind of stuff. Republicans in the 70s and 80s were the first to really target voters on a very specific level. And the way that they did this was via magazine lists. So you might not know whether or not somebody is a Republican or a Democrat, or if they like your politics or they don't like your politics. But you do know that if they have a subscription to guns and ammo, that they're probably going to support somebody who believes in the right to bear arms. Pretty smart. And you can buy those lists from these publishers. They're not protected by any kind of government organization. So let's flash forward. We go to 2008. All of a sudden, there's the rise of social media and a little site called Facebook. Well, back then, the whiz kids at the Obama campaign decided, hey, if everybody is listing their town, listing their friends, then you can make a pretty compelling social graph to target various messages. And not only can you graph that onto your organizational efforts, but in the nascent era of advertising, you could push the right advertising to them. Then, of course, it became the worst thing on earth when the Cambridge Analytica stuff happened, which is probably overblown. But still, it's not that getting your message out to the right people wins you elections, but it can make a small and in a close race, very meaningful difference. And so we're on the precipice of quite possibly the end of the golden age of small dollar online fundraising. And with that will come a brand new age. To discuss what's happening then, now, and in the future, we bring in our guests. Absolute pleasure to have two of my favorite people on the show at the same damn time. The host of Daily Tech News Show, Tom Merritt.
Hello, good to be here.
And the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign, Michael D. Cohen.
Thank you so much for having me back, and great to meet you, Tom. You guys,
it's great to meet you, Michael. I
awesome.
Enjoy your appearances on PX3 quite a bit, so it's an honor to get to hang with you.
This is a mutual admiration society. I remember watching, Tech TV, and then that became Twit, which you both had worked on, and This is it's always a treat, guys. Thanks,
fantastic.
All right, so the reason why we're bringing these two on is because we want to start the conversation here on a story that is literally at the intersection of tech and politics. Michael has written about it. Tom has talked about it on DTNS. So Tom, let's do the tech side first. Mm-hmm. What is the change that is coming to iPhones on iOS, and do we know for sure what it will be?
Well, we have the beta now, which is available for the public. So I don't like to put it on my production machines, but for you, Justin, I put it on my phone last night just so I could experience it directly instead of on my iPad, which is what I usually do. And there's not a huge change. There's already a send unknown senders, to a folder setting in the current version of iOS. Mm-hmm. They expand.
So where for iOS people, if they are going into their phone because they're curious about this right now and they're looking at messages, where is the mysterious folder, the shadow realm?
This is why I'm looking at my phone while doing the show. I'm not just checking my messages and being rude to Justin. I want to get these settings right. Yeah. In the current version, it's buried in settings and it just, basically turns off the notifications. In iOS 26, which is available now for you to download should you wish and will come to everyone in October, there is a new option called Screen Unknown Senders. And the addition to the previous unknown senders screening is that you can allow notifications for some versions of that. And basically, what both of these do in the current and the beta is anybody who's not in your contact list doesn't give a notification. And in the beta, you'll even have easy access to a little filter drop down in the top right corner of the app where you can look at what got sent there in case you're like, well, I didn't get that message from the plumber. I wonder if it got sent to unknown senders by mistake. The notifications that you can allow are time sensitive, right? So if a verification code gets sent in there, one of those 2-factor codes by mistake, they're not supposed to, but if they do, this will help keep that from going in. Personal, in other words, iOS says that's not a business number, so we'll let the notification come. Transactions, receipts, stuff like that. And then promotions. If you were like, actually, I'd like to get that Home Depot discount text message.
So similar to like what happened with Gmail several years ago.
Very similar.
They started separating things into different piles.
It's the same idea. And then when you're in messages, up in the top right, there's an unknown senders section and there's a spam section. Now, the spam section is going to be new as well. Spam is what iOS says this shouldn't be coming to you for any reason. Yeah. This is like going into the spam folder in your email or in your Gmail. Unknown senders
they have on a system level designated as either bad actors or
definitely
malicious
don't
text.
think you should be getting this at all. Unknown senders is you don't have this in your contact list. So if you have this on, we'll filter it here. And one of the reasons that's important is political text messages cannot be categorized as spam under the U.S. laws. They are required to be delivered as if they were a normal message. And I'll hand it over to Michael at that point. But that's the difference in the operating system.
You may or may not, dear listener, have heard squeals of pain, screeches from the mid-Atlantic, because over the last few weeks, many high-powered organizations that oversee hundreds of millions of dollars of fundraising on a yearly basis are up in arms because of this change and what it might do to text message fundraising. Right, Michael?
Yeah, this was the Alderaan moment for Obi-Wan Kenobi, where he sensed, millions and millions of fundraisers suddenly silenced. And as it turns out, where they're going to end up is they're going to end up in the shadow realm of promotions. And so what I've been, because I have the beta on too, and because we're developers of Congress in Your Pocket, I have to put it on my production phone. So I actually have to live with this thing. And so, as you would imagine, I get tons of text messages from politicos and stuff. And so I've been getting Ted Cruz and other people, and they all end up in promotions. Now, that's interesting because it's not spam, right? And so even though the National, Senatorial Committee, on the Republican side, got all up in arms about this, you talked about this and, I wrote about it as well, that they said this is going to cost us so much money. What it is it's showing up in promotions. And frankly, that's a place where people do naturally go to. It will be, put away a little bit, but they will go to it because they've opted into their favorite, bird dogs ads. And all the other things that we've seen in Instagram that we've decided, okay, great. And to Tom's point, what you really want if you're a political marketer at this point is to get access to your contacts. So right now, between now and whenever this goes live, my sense of it is that every single political marketer, and I'm trying to talk to them and say, this is the move, is to make sure that you get access to contacts. And so it's not just good enough just to have, home address, phone number. It's to have access to that part of that person's phone so that they then get it delivered to messages instead. Because what happens right now is that over the past 10 years, marketing for politics has basically gone to email, but then it got shadow realms by, Gmail and others, like you've just talked about. They're doing the same thing for text. And so instead of having deliverability, which is really the coin of the realm of having a text go to you and 99% of the time hitting you, now it's going to be 80% or 70% or half time. But here's the important piece. And I think that we talked about this also, Tom, and Justin, that at this point, the beta has it as opt-in as opposed to opt-out. That's an important distinction. It may actually save, Tim Apple from a very bad phone call from his friend on Pennsylvania Avenue, which is, you can't do this.
He is apparently going to be there tonight as we are recording this on Wednesday. So maybe,
and this is going to be a part of that
then.
conversation because the NRSC is saying to Trump, you got to get us to opt in. Because if we get to opt in, then it'll be fine. It'll just be nerds like the three of us and others, that are related to us and friends of us. They're going to go through the 7-step process that I basically wrote on my piece on 24 site, and how you have to do this so you can get all of this cleaned up for you. And so it really comes down to opt in, opt out here.
Yeah. And earlier versions of the beta were opt out. In other words, unknown sender filtering was on, and then they changed it. So when I downloaded the beta yesterday, it was not on. I had to go do that process to turn it on.
Exactly. And I think those are great tools. Honestly, the mood music around this in politics is really important. 15 billion texts in 2022, 3x last year estimated at this point. And then you have 241 million, eligible voters in the United States, and not all of them are really targeted. So you're talking about people who have been targeted by ads are getting not just 15 to 20, they're probably getting hundreds of these,
I think I was good for $1 billion last cycle, personally.
I was there as well. Yeah.
I was not left out of that either. You buy one button and suddenly boom.
So Michael, real quick, you have the beta on now. You have been getting fundraising appeals. One of the things that the National Republican Senatorial Committee, which was the first major institution to raise the alarm about this, they were specifically circling the idea that it wouldn't notify you and you wouldn't get a badge. So when it pings you, it shows up in that tile on your lock screen. Did you get that if it went to promotions?
I did not get the tile. They're right. That is accurate. Okay. What I have been getting, though, is phone calls spam. And right now, the beta is a little wonky, as you would imagine. And so I'm getting the notification, but then I go to the app and I can't find it because it's already been put in spam. Yeah. So there's some, again, this is a beta, we should really be, mindful of that. But I think the point is that the idea is that if it's going to promotions or it's going to spam or it's going to anywhere else other than the messages category, it's going to go to the shadow realm, which means that you have to actively go there.
One clarification on that. Yes. If you turn on the promotions setting for allow, which again, you'd have to go do. So not that many people are going to do it.
So that would be opt
in. Then you would get that notification, that red badge for 1 hour, and then it disappears. So people may not even notice it,
really?
Even if it's turned on. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
Okay.
They got to clean that up. Yeah. It's either opt in or opt out. It can't be opt in for an hour. Yeah. Yeah.
Michael, so did you opt in? Are you the worst case scenario for the political marketers that you have already opted in and now it's going to promotions, or does it go to promotions no matter what? And if you opt in, it will go to a place where it's very, very hard to find.
Yeah, so I've opted into the filtering. I think it's important to sort of give the complete sense here. So I've opted into the filtering,
it goes to promotions.
When you opt into the filtering, it goes to promotions, right? And if you turn all of that off, theoretically, it would just come, as a normal text. And so if Tim Apple and his team decide that they're going to do this and it's going to be opt-in, you'll get your iPhone and you'll be like, well, I'm getting all this spam. Why am I still getting all this spam? You're going to have to find through ChatGPT and others or friends and family. Oh, this is how you have to do it. Give me your phone, right? You'll be like, okay, I'll do this for you.
Or, and this is the middle ground, Tom, it could be opt-in, but Apple could do one of those helpful little walk you through it screens when you open things up. And a lot of people are going to opt in.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. When they do that, in fact, having just put the beta on this phone yesterday, they have a lot of those pop-up things that say, hey, here's the new feature in here. Would you like to turn it on or off? Apple's very good about that. So that won't make everyone turn it on, but I imagine that will goose the numbers up quite a bit.
All right, absolutely. Michael, let's talk about the money side of this. The NRSC said that this could be anywhere between like $50 and $500 million worth of lost fundraising. Obviously, they are trying to create a panic right now, not only on the Republican side. And let me make that very clear. This is not a Republican issue. This is a Republican, Democratic, the entire ecosystem that revolves around this. And this is multi-billion dollars, especially when the tide is high. What do you think is a more realistic number if that one is hyperbolic?
Yeah, I think, of course, it's hyperbolic, number one, because it's not going to be everybody. And of course, what's happening too, by the way, is that most people who have donated, you have to donate not only that, access to your phone, but you have to donate your money, and then you have to donate your contact information. They have the contact information. Okay.
Yeah.
So theoretically, some of these people already have the NRSC or whomever in their contacts or have received these kinds of texts before. Okay. So that those people will somehow be out of this kind of filtering. The other thing too is that they also have email address. So they will ask you to go ahead and add you to their to your contact list. As soon as you start doing that, it's going to lower this number. The other thing too, and I think this is really important because first of all, we don't know what the number is. I mean, I wish I could give you a number, but we don't know. Okay, I don't want to get over my skis here. It's going to be less than what that is, and more than, frankly, zero. Right? And it's going to be somewhere in between, depending upon how easy Apple makes this happen.
Like when we
this,
look,
this will lower the number. Yeah,
yeah. When we look at the 2028 fundraising, it might be safe to say that it will be lower than 2024's fundraising, at least when it comes to small donors?
So what I think is going to happen is going to be not lower, but the rate of increase will go lower. Okay. So I don't think that. So for example, if it's been basically, going up like a hockey stick, it's going to be flattening out a little bit. Okay. And I think that that's going to freak people out because of course everything gets more expensive every year and that kind of thing. But what I think is going to happen here, and this is actually healthy for the system, and one of the things I talk about in the book, which you are gamely doing the audiobook for, and I want to shout you out for that every time I can talk to you.
Don't shout me out until I finish it, because I'm taking my sweet time with it.
Yeah, but I mean, you're on the ninth one, and you're getting there. Yeah, no, it's
slowly but surely rolling along.
You have a young, beautiful baby who's actually mobile right now.
It turns out having a child being able to pull things off shelves is more time consuming than I was initially estimating.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's where that's where 5 of my chapters went. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, but back to this. I mean, I think what it really comes down to is that this is good for the system because what you really want right now is to devalue just sort of algorithmic and list-based politics. You'd rather have one-on-one, relationships. And so I think each of these candidates, and particularly the parties, need to find a way to get into your life a lot more. And getting to your contact list is just another natural progression of this. So, we have sort of certain contact information for you, but then taking that next step where you can have relational organizing and relational, fundraising and all the kinds of things that we're looking at in politics right now that we know work. It works really well. So, for example, Tom, you've got, a great big network of people. I don't just want to have money from you. I want to have it from all the people that you know. Now, to be able to do that, I have to have access to you. Now, having access to you includes your email and also your phone number, but it also includes access to your contact list now. Yeah, and to your I'm sorry, to your, your contacts, right? So
Yeah.
that I know that I get it all to you. But it also matters because you have instant access to everyone within your network. So they don't need to have every one of your friends and family. What they need to do is to have you so that you can then be deputized to go say, hey, heard about a great candidate. We just got redistricted. And oh, this is the person that we now vote for. It's not this other person. And so that kind of politics, that kind of sort of fundamentals of the technology of politics is where this is going anyway. So it's not like the Tim Apple thing is going to throw completely a loop for everybody. It just really focuses people on one piece of your digital life where they need to be so that they can do all the things they already want to do.
And I said this jokingly when I talked to Justin about this on DTNS, but they probably need to focus on how to raise more money from Android users, because that's the other 50% of the market in the US.
Absolutely. And I mean, we haven't talked about them because I'm not an Android guy and I need to I have a testing, piece that I use, but I'm not within that ecosystem. It wouldn't surprise me if after Apple does this, Google does this, or if Google has already done this and Apple is doing it next.
Yeah, that might be it. So we're gonna get a bunch of Android emails saying we've had this since
We've had this
2014.
for 5 years.
Right,
Right, exactly.
just because.
I know.
So I'm looking at my
Yeah.
Pixel phone right now, and I don't see anything like it yet. But we'll wait and see.
Okay.
We're gonna take a break from this amazing conversation to bring you guys a little bit of an update live from the lovely Las Vegas, Nevada. Landed here this morning. I am at DEF CON. Already ran into one of you, one PX3 fan. Hope to see you at the DEF CON booth. But we got to get into some stories that we didn't have a chance to cover. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that Israel intends to take full control of the Gaza Strip, a move he says is necessary to destroy Hamas, free remaining hostages, and transfer authority to a non-Hamas civilian government. This comes despite warnings from the United Nations, the United Kingdom, and some Israeli military leaders that some of these plans could have catastrophic humanitarian and legal consequences. Hamas accuses Netanyahu of sacrificing hostages for political gain and reversing the course of stalled ceasefire talks, while Israeli media reports that the plan would require tens of thousands of troops, beginning with the takeover of Gaza City and central refugee camps, and forcibly relocating around 1 million residents to South Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation would expand aid distribution under the plan. They have been controversial over the last few weeks as they have taken hold of the distribution from the UN. Aid groups report systemic violence and worsening famine conditions, with July marking record levels of acute malnutrition in children. Netanyahu's push has drawn objections from the IDF Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, who warned it would trap forces and endanger hostages. That being said, the Security Cabinet is expected to approve it. You know, whenever you puzzled through how October 7th would end, something like this was always one of the options, right? The biggest thing that I did not see coming at all was Iran's involvement and the fact that Israel would see an opportunity for a very weakened Iran to be attacked on some level. That I didn't see. I did see this because in my mind, the only way that this would ever end was either Hamas is dismantled and no longer runs Gaza. Well, that would be the thing. Then the sub-question would be, does Hamas flee? Do you see, everybody who's on the ground in Gaza goes to live with the, billionaire members of Hamas in Qatar, or the hard way, which would be a kind of root and branch side of it. I guess also the hostages. Look, that nothing's going to end before the hostages are dealt with. This plan will be extraordinarily controversial within Israel because when you make a move toward where the hostages are being kept, you are allowing for the possibility that the hostages will be killed. And if the hostages are killed, well, you begin to run the risk of thinking, well, what was the point of all of this to begin with? If you were just going to risk the hostages being killed, then why didn't you just run in there immediately? And then conversely, if you cared so much about the hostages, then why did you put them at a risk to get killed? Part of me wonders if you could get to a position where there could be a realistic ceasefire talk that Israel would be cool with without this on the table. Because Hamas is an organization for which martyrdom is a pretty good option. So they are willing to die for their cause. If you are in a negotiating position, it's very hard to negotiate with somebody who says, well, okay, I can always die. I can always die for my cause. Just think about that in any negotiation. It's hard to make a deal with somebody. Now, if you say, I'm going to kill you, and I don't care about the deal, so either you can be sure that that you're going to die, or you can take a deal and live. What do you do there? But then also, what is the life to be lived from a Hamas leader that leaves Gaza? One of the undercovered vectors of this entire situation, and this is something I want to credit Ryan Macbeth for initially cluing me in on, is that Gaza's not, we think of it in this world, obviously, where you have the Palestinian people versus the Israeli people or the IDF, however you want to slice it. But really, Hamas, functionally, is like a mafioso that is running an occupied territory. Yes, they were the elected government, but they have not allowed elections since. So you can, I think, accurately say that they are as much of a criminal syndicate as they are a legitimate government. There's also rival criminal syndicates. Like, let's remember what happened with Afghanistan. You had the Taliban that, essentially had now won their war against the United States because the United States wanted to leave. But then you had splinter Islamic militias like ISIS-K that were like, wait a minute, if the Americans are leaving, we're going to kill as many as possible. Like, we got to kill these people, right? And it was ISIS-K that bombed Abbey Gate that killed those Marines, that then led for Joe Biden to drone bomb a family that nobody ever talks about. But still, it wasn't the Taliban. The Taliban was blamed because they were supposed to be, quote unquote, security. What a disaster that pullout was. But you always got to remember, this is not a one-dimensional thing. So if you're Hamas, it's like, what deal can you make? You can't make a deal and then live in Gaza. You're going to have to leave. Where do you go? Where does somebody who on Monday wants to die for their cause, on Tuesday, if they make a deal, where do they go? I mean, you don't just kick it in the south of France, right? You don't just go to Disney World. You're not just in Orlando doing Mario World at Universal Orlando, right? This is you're not just here in the casino where I'm at right now, putting it all on black. This is a different kind of world that they're talking about. So obviously, this is going to be an incredibly hot button issue. If I were to bet whether or not it's going to happen, I would say it would. Russian President Vladimir Putin appears to have scored a diplomatic win as President Trump unexpectedly indicated that he would meet with him very soon, and the Kremlin embraced the potential summit, possibly to take place at the United Arab Emirates, as a strategic gain, despite Putin's ongoing refusal to cease hostilities in Ukraine. U.S. officials initially conditioned the meeting on Putin also meeting Ukrainian President Zelensky, but Trump later backed off on that stipulation. Experts warn that a unilateral U.S.-Russia summit that sidelines Ukraine risks legitimizing aggression and undermining NATO, potentially emboldening Moscow. Now, this is something that I've heard a few different ways. The initial reports were that Trump would meet with Putin and then Putin and Zelensky and Trump would meet. A Trump-Putin meeting, I don't know if it would go super well for Putin right now, unless he is willing to bring something to the table. Donald Trump has veered more toward harder action against Putin. When we move nuclear submarines, some of the same types of submarines that we bombed of the Iranian facilities with, we moved them into range of Russia. Sanctions are going in today as you hear this on Friday. So I don't know if I read this quite the same way as the copy, as it's being reported at least. And that is that this is a capitulation. Facts that I know. Donald Trump has been getting jerked around by Putin. Now, I tend to think that he does not like that, and he has been making himself clear about that. But you want to know what? There are some people who will never not believe that Donald Trump is a yo-yo for Putin. So there is that. We never know. Two, we've already seen things that Trump wouldn't have otherwise done now has come into force. And Trump might be looking at it in a scenario, especially coming out of Iran, where he's like, look, this is just one of these dudes who will not make a good deal until he sees how bad the deal can go. Because if you think the United States isn't going to get into it and they're not going to get rough and tumble because the American media and the fact that America has elections so often that you don't really have a lot of leeway to do stuff, Trump has remained fairly steadfast on stuff like that, but we don't know. These two stories that we just covered, Trump's record of foreign policy will not be close to complete until one or both are ended. And I know he is hoping that both are ended before the midterms. And finally, Senator John Cornyn of Texas claimed that the FBI has agreed to help locate Democratic Texas lawmakers who fled the state to derail a Republican-led redistricting effort. Although no criminal charges exist, the lawmakers' absence denied Republicans the quorum needed to push through new congressional maps in the Lone Star State. Republicans have issued civil arrest warrants and pursued legal measures to remove the members from office. Critics, including Democrats and legal experts, denounce federal involvement in what they view as a political standoff, questioning the legality of using law enforcement in such partisan disputes. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker reaffirmed that the lawmakers have broken no laws by seeking refuge in his state. Well, of course, J.B. Pritzker's got to say that because currently these lawmakers are essentially props for his presidential campaign, which will be forthcoming in 2028. The idea that they're like looking for refuge is just ridiculous, patently ridiculous. Even if you agree with the idea that breaking quorum is good for democracy or whatever, the idea that they are persecuted on some level by being state representatives and they are leaving to deny quorum even strips away agency of what they're doing. They're supposed to be political protesters. They're supposed to be doing something wrong. I don't know. This is the thing I said before in the monologue on Wednesday. The best thing that could happen to them is they get arrested. The best thing that could happen to them is they get arrested. They should be looking for this. I don't know. Again, I made my point clear on Wednesday. They should be in Texas. They should be going door to door to everybody who is about to get redistricted from a blue neighborhood into a red one, because those are voters that you need to activate. You know, Beto O'Rourke's political action committee paid for the flights for all the Democrats to leave. That's something that is being pursued by Ken Paxton right now. Imagine if they were doing this in all these neighborhoods, in Austin, in the Rio Grande Valley, in Dallas, in Houston. It would be the biggest news story. And if they got dragged back by Texas Rangers, it would be an even bigger news story. So, is this out of line? It really depends. If they ask the FBI to analyze the pictures of their social media to figure out where they are, I don't think they would need the FBI for it, but I don't really think that that's a particular breach. If, Kash Patel goes kicking down doors at the Marriott in Chicago and putting people in squad cars, I don't know. That would probably cross a line for me. And that's your update. Brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Head on over there right now, get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. And now, back to our convo. I want to point something out that has brought stuff like this to a head. And I want to shout out this article, data number 4 democracy.substack.com. Great article by Adam Bonilla. He ran down the data analytics on a organization called Mothership, which was formed by people that came out of the DCCC, which is the Democratic Congressional Committee. They have a web of various PACs that have texted you repeatedly, if you were on the left side of the aisle, desperately pleading that you need to give $15 right now or else your candidate is going to die. They raised $678 million since 2018, according to Bonicha's finding. They gave $11 million to candidates in that time. That is a tremendous burn through rate. Even if you are assuming that you are spending a lot of money on vendors to send this stuff, which that does cost a lot. It doesn't cost that much. Somebody is getting rich off this and it doesn't appear to be the candidates. But part of the downstream effects of that, and Bonilla points it out in terms of eroding trust with small dollar donors, is if they get 19 of these every 5 seconds, that eventually when you actually need the money, you are going to be the candidate that cried wolf. But I would make the argument even further that it's stuff like this that has brought this issue to a head. And if you didn't have a gigantic high energy turbine of text messages that were going out at all hours of the day, then maybe you wouldn't be in a situation where Apple is going to respond to their users by saying, figure out a way systematically to strip these text messages out of my life.
Which they can't put in spam, right? That's what Google Messages does. It has spam and block, but that doesn't affect these.
Yeah, and the other piece of this is that when you look at it, let's say you hit stop. I've said stop to Ted Cruz for about 10 years. I'm not a Texan. I'm in Virginia, and I grew up in New York, and I went to college in Florida. I have no relationship with Texas.
I have an urgent appeal for you.
Right. From Acapulco, right?
Yeah,
whatever.
From Cancun. No, he's a Cancun man.
Yeah. No, it's Cancun. I'm sorry. Yeah, I take it back. Sorry, Ted. But, every time I say stop to Ted, there is also another Ted coming at me. And so I think to a real extent, you can say stop to this one, but that won't stop you from getting from others as well. And I think that that's really eroding trust here, because you're not getting it from Ted, right? You're getting it from Ted's team. Ted's team says, okay, I'm blocked here. Well, I'll come through you here, or I'll come through you there. And that's just one candidate, let alone the parties, let alone the presidential candidates, let alone all the interest groups that you might be interested or affiliated with, or ones you actually do not want in your life, because they're all sharing lists. And they're all using different codes to get to you. They're not using like the NRSC code. I'll shout out Eric Wilson, who actually does a really good Substack on politics, and he suggests that each campaign should have one code so that you can build the relationship that way instead of having 5, 6, or 10 of them. Because again, that erodes trust, right? If I hear from the campaign, I want to hear from the campaign. I don't want to hear from 25 others. Now, of course, you'd have to separate between that and the related super PACs and the other groups. But at the very least, if I get it from the campaign, I shouldn't have to say stop 10 times.
Well, and if you get a recipient to add that one code to known senders, then you don't have to worry about this whole Apple thing.
Exactly.
I would also wonder whether or not, like, part of the future of this, our friend Brian Brushwood, who has a very successful email list that he has maintained for years and years and years and has funded his career, before he got into selling products on the internet, he just used it as a way that he could talk to his audience that he would gather from playing shows around the country for colleges. But what he learned very quick was that if you don't want this to go to spam, then not every communication needs to be a thing where you are asking for money. And I do wonder whether or not right now, everything in politics is optimized for how can I put my hand out the most effectively that you almost reflexively will put money in my outstretched hands, whoever that is, right? And I wonder whether or not, like you mentioned, Michael, not only one code, but I don't know, maybe send me information that doesn't have a link at the end to it, which right now is non-existent in the world of political communication.
Or ask people who are, on your list, what kinds of communications do you want? Okay. And we will optimize for that. So in other words, on a campaign, it's not just fundraising, but it's also, do you want to go to events? Do you want to be invited to rallies? Do you want to be invited to call centers to go and make calls? Do you want to be invited to organizing things? Do you want to be involved in policy talks? Do you want us to send you our press releases? I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do, and then make sure that when it gets to that person, it's not just delivered, right? Because deliverability is the coin of the realm, but also engaged with. And that you can then, if you wanted to, have some kind of situation where, like on Substack, I don't want to have, notes sent to me, but I certainly want the email sent to me, right? Same thing here. You know what? I actually do want to know when you need money, right?
Yeah.
So send me fundraising, or, lower that to once a week as opposed to whatever. So I think that there's a lot of things that the political realm can learn from, Substack and other, email marketing and text marketing people.
The
that
creator
they're frankly not
economy
doing at this point. Yeah, that the creators are not just there to promote your candidate. You can learn
Let's
from
go.
them. I think that there's a lot of
I
things
like
to
this.
here.
Tom, we're going to set up a consultancy, dude.
Yeah.
We're going to make bank. Like we can just go up and down DC, just start cashing these checks to explain how you can raise small dollar money, because that's how we've made our living.
I created a six-figure business that's been around for 12 years just on reaching out to people the right way, and you can too. Exactly.
Click here.
All right, more. Michael, start introducing us to the right people. Let me give you guys let me give you guys a hypothetical. I haven't prepared you guys for this. Let's say,
prepare us for anything. By the way, we got no questions beforehand because we're friends here. We just get on. We're just
rolling the ball out. It's a good time. Let's say Apple goes scorched earth. Let's say that they have heard all the appeals. Trump is right in Tim Apple's ear when he's doing this, $100 billion announcement on Wednesday, and Tim is resolute. He is as firm as a good Auburn defense. And he's like, you want to know what? Even worse than that,
in the 90s.
I'm going to strip out everything. All Americans want is to not be bothered by these fundraising things. If they want to fundraise, there's plenty of ways that you can reach people that are actually there to do it. I'm a big donor myself. I find a way to give. No more text messages. Kills it. What comes next? Let's imagine a world there. What is the next lane? Because I assume that experimentation would be huge. It's going to be big now. I assume that experimentation would become incredibly important going forward. Michael, we'll start with you.
Then you have Alderaan, right?
That's it.
Alderraan's blown up.
It's
and
over.
Then you have,
yeah.
Then you have Alderaan. But I mean, let's just say that's not going to happen, right? But
it's not going to happen. But let's imagine.
But imagining Alderaan, there will be court cases, right? So you would have the NRSC and others, and probably
They'd
both
sue.
parties sue at the same time. This would actually bring DC together because DC loves nothing more than to have a unified front on money. Okay, and so you would have both
It's all fun and
parties.
games until the expense card starts declining, right?
Yeah, if you can't go to Capitol Grill down the block from the Capitol, and just plunk down the credit card, it's going to be a problem for some people. So I think obviously there would be not only unanimity within the political sphere, but there will be lawsuits all over the place. And my sense is that Tim Apple, if he were to decide to do this, he would have honestly, if you're Tim Apple, the idea here is that you're saying you're on the side of voters, right? You
Of course.
become
Users.
Tim America. You're no longer Tim Apple. You're Tim America. Okay.
Yeah. No, he would. I mean, look, the cook would be serving a popular dish, which is peace during political wartime. Tom, Michael seems to think that this would not be given up without a fight, and we would see a united front of everybody in DC marching to Silicon Valley to storm the UFO campus of Apple. But let's imagine that instead they were like, "Hey, we got to figure out a new digital way to connect with people."
What's the next move? Okay,
what would it be?
Yeah, instead of 1,000% tariffs on electronics from India, they just give up. It's an imaginary scenario already, so let's go there. Yeah, where would they go for the fundraising next? And the answer is the only option they have is direct outreach. Go with more Act Blue, Act Red style things, but times 10. And I'm leaning into a little of what Michael suggested with that creator economy thing, which is find a way to make people love hanging out on your digital platform, wherever it is. It could be on TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, whatever, and solicit those donations directly there. That's the only other way besides email and messaging, or maybe search, but that's not a growing business. So,
Nope.
They've kind of maxed that out. I think you have to start creating content that draws people into a platform and say, hey, you got to be on here if you really want to know what's happening, which is kind of what they say in those text messages is you don't know the danger. You just got to move that to and if you want to escape the danger, come to X platform.
I got a couple thoughts. Number one, far flung. This is maybe not this cycle, but the cycle afterward. I do think the landscape of information is going to obviously be shaped by LLMs and AI going forward. I would not be shocked if by the time that we have another presidential election, a large, significant portion of Americans begin their day with a curated feed from their personal assistant of choice, and that there might be skills or ways that you can directly plug in to either the NRSC or the DCCC or whatever. They can figure out brands that would make it not like you were just plugging into a fire hose of fundraising appeals, but developing that would be something key. In the more realistic sense, I think that it's going to have to be the vampire model of you are invited in. So you already have that in a major way with campaigns where every lectern that a candidate is speaking in front of, right under their logo is text number, which is a way that you can make sure that if you texted that number, even in this crazy scenario that I'm talking about, you would now get all of those fundraising appeals because you are specifically texting
you're
a thing.
adding them to the contacts.
You are adding them. I would imagine that there will be a place either now or in a more harsh version than we will likely get, where campaigns and specifically the fundraising side of it will be more tightly intertwined with the strategy element to think of, hey, what moment can we tease so people will add our number? Like that will become more important because it's going to jump over these hurdles. And not only is it good because it shows engagement with a candidate in a campaign and the voting base, specifically the fundraising voting base, but it's also going to be necessary because, whether or not this is a high hurdle or a low hurdle, it's going to be more of a hurdle than existed before. And it's going to require more people to jump over it.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. Like give them some content or an event or special access to merch. We already see little inklings of that. Just make that more compelling so that people now engage directly. And then to your point,
it's
Justin,
access. It's always access.
You're asking for them to say, here, I will put you in my context because you're giving me access. I think
like some candidates, AOC is great about doing these live chats on Instagram, and that's fantastic. You build an Instagram following, it gives you X amount. I wonder whether or not there's not just going to be an hour of the day where people on your campaign or the candidate itself say, hey, we're just doing a voice chat with everybody who joins over text.
It's like the new fireside chat.
Join at this thing, click this link. It's a private thing. It's not on social media. It's not saved forever. This is just for people. And we're going to spill the tea on where we are, what's going on. I don't know. Show some element of where we care about this and you are involved.
Make real that message that says X candidate wants to invite you to dinner, but over the internet. You're just hanging out.
Yeah, and don't forget, every single text that you're going to have now is going to have, don't forget to add us to your thing. Don't forget to add us to your contacts. So, when you're sending out an email, at the bottom, it has, this blurb about you and it has a link to your website. Every single text has to have, add us. Now, at some level, I think that may end up being supremely annoying. So it would be nice if Apple would then recognize that you're already in there and send that information back to the people who texted you so that So like almost like a read receipt, but also an ad receipt. And so to me, like if I'm looking at this from a political marketer standpoint, I want to know if I'm in the context already so I don't have to keep hammering them for this, right?
You can also mark as known without adding to the context as kind of a half measure for people too. But that may be too much education. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but at some point, it's just a, mark as known or, I'm already in there. You should be able to send that information back two-way so that you then don't get that appeal. Because what's going to happen is you're going to now optimize everything you do to get into the contacts, because that's the golden ticket to being able to get back to the future, to your inbox of your messages.
There is, I think a lot of experimentation that is going to have to be done to figure this out. Michael, where do you see this actually landing?
So I think we landed opt-in. I think that the political class, pats themselves on the back with both hands.
Yeah,
and says, yes,
as they want to do.
We got opt-in, but I do think that we then decide, okay, well, we probably have one or two more cycles before Tim Apple does land the boom on us, and we end up on Alderaan at the wrong place at the wrong time. So, for me, you probably have another cycle or two before people who have the phone say, I'd rather just turn this on. At some point, people do find their way to the right settings and the attrition level will happen. So as that's happening, even if it's incremental, they're not just going to pat themselves on the back. They're going to also say, well, actually, this is really good for us, what I was saying earlier, which is we want to build relationships and long-term relationships with people. And the only way we do that is if we're in your contacts. So that is the next big step for political marketers to go ahead and do that. And to get to where they all really want to go anyway, which is every single election, we want to know who our supporters are going in. We'd rather not just get new lists of people. We want to make sure we hold on to the people that we earned last time for the next election.
I wonder whether or not there is a way on a system level that iOS or Android could just allow you to put your preferences, or to say like, I voted the primary, I voted in the general, and just use that as a way in which you can, get off these lists for like fundraising or bugging you to register to vote. Because I think that's something that, even from the campaign side, they don't want to send a text message if it's useless.
Well, I don't know if that comes from the system level so much. That has to be handled.
I would love it if you could. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it needs to be a system level. If it would be great if it's a system level. If you could then, if people don't respect it, it could just strip it out. Just be like, never show me anything that tells me I need to register to vote.
but then you're in moderation land where you're essentially moderating access to your text. They're already upset at moderation on social media. Then you've then made yourself, was it Section 237, a problem for you? I just,
No,
to me,
no,
like,
no, no.
if they're not going to do that. They're not going to carve out anything for politics that would make it more difficult. If anything, they'll carve it out to make it, more interesting for people. So, for example, like, I could see a situation where if you push me, if I'm as a consultant, what I would like is not just messages, unknown senders, transactions, promotion, spam, recent deleted. I want the political line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so you want your own category?
Yeah.
I want my own,
don't think that's crazy to think
category.
that there would be pressure.
Category.
Yeah.
Right.
And say you want to make an exception for that second factor code. You want to make an exception for my hotel reservation and my restaurant reservation. Then political messages are already treated differently. Make that a category too. I think that's genius.
Right. And honestly, on top of that, as a pollster, as someone who's done that for 30 years, I want to be in that category.
Yeah.
Like that's where I want to be. I want political speech to be in its own category under messages.
Then on the system level, Justin, they can say the election is over in your region. Would you like to pause political messages for 3 months, 6 months, something like that? And then it automatically comes back in the next cycle.
Yeah, if only. But I'll tell you this though, that there's a permanent campaign going on. It's the last chapter of my book that Justin hasn't gotten to yet.
Nope,
but he will. And
eventually.
The idea here is that all the stuff goes on in between elections, and there's really never a stoppage. And Tom, if you do that, you will then trip the wire where the political class will come together and sue you. So I think the best I think the best situation that you can have is you would have something that you would have the right to ignore on your phone, not be filtered by Apple. So because then Apple would essentially be saying, and superseding Supreme Court precedent of that you can't limit advertising on television, but we could limit advertising on your phone through messages. And I think that ends up being a spot where they wouldn't do it. So I think the best case scenario for the political class is we end up in our own bucket, which is we just want to be in our own playground anyway. And so there's no problem with that from our perspective. We would consider that a major win.
That's interesting because on one side, I totally agree with you. Yeah, you want to be able to not be mixed up about with a Baskin Robbins coupon, but at the same time, to Tom's point, boy, does it make it easier if there's any kind of mute or auto delete function or block function for like just everything that would go in that category. Boy, would it be easy to nuke all political text.
That's the argument.
That is a very exciting sentence for many, many, many listeners, even to this show.
Yeah, that's why the temporary pause is actually more friendly to the politicians because otherwise you're left with the option of always off forever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I say what it comes down to is that you won't be able to narrow time, unfortunately, because of the Supreme Court cases, and I don't think that this Supreme Court in particular is going to somehow, overturn that kind of precedent. But what I would say is that if you end up in the political realm, that will help, but it won't go away. Right. So it'll still be there. And then it will still give you the incentive to get out of the political filter into your main. So it's sort of a half measure that I think that they can easily give back. I mean, that's something that they can turn on in the next beta if they wanted. I mean, they already have the technology for this. They just give one more line to Politico and everyone's happy.
Well, iOS 27 will come out shortly before the midterms. So that's where any changes that are going to happen will be the most effective.
Yeah, I've just talked myself into something I need to add to the next edition of my book.
Michael, how animated have calls from throughout DC been to the lobbyists for Apple over the last months since this has started bubbling up? Like how fervent are these conversations?
The worst job in politics right now is working as government relations in Apple right now. I was actually at a thing like last week, and it happened before this, but I took the guy's business card. We exchanged business cards as one does in DC. And I am absolutely going to be reaching out. I'm sure he's going to ignore the call.
Well,
I'm
he
sure
might.
he's going to be like, do you know
I
what,
can.
Mike? I have 25 other ones, and all of those people are really angry, and I don't need 25 plus one, just some dork from, academia slash writing slash consultant. I don't need to hear from another consultant about this, Mike.
They might be getting sacks of mail to K Street that are cut out magazine letters
Justin,
with
they'll probably have step
threatening
away from getting.
messages.
They'll probably get a half step away from getting a horse's head in their bed in the morning. Yeah, Godfather reference for you
That
kids.
is the fastest way to get iced out of a kid's carpool in suburban Virginia, right? If you're the Apple representative.
Yeah, it's an apple in the horse's mouth. Yeah. Yeah.
A phenomenal conversation, and we will see where this goes. Mr. Tom Merritt, where can people find you?
DailyTechNewsShow.com. That's where you can find all the shows that talk about tech. We endeavor to help everyone understand this crazy tech world. So if you want to keep up without having to be an expert, that's the place to go. DailyTechNewsShow.com.
Mr. Michael Cohen, where do people find you?
You can find me over at michaelcohen.us, but the book is at modernpoliticalcampaigns.com.
Audiobook coming as soon
On
as
its way.
My daughter stops trying to kill herself by pulling books on her head.
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. So eventually, look, it is inching forward. It's like Elon's tunnel machine. Like the fact that it's going at 3 inches every hour is actually an improvement. It might not sound like it, but it is an improvement over existing technology. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics. Brought to you as always by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. You can email theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You can send me or follow me. Well, here, come on over to the YouTube. Politics is the YouTube. We're building it up. We're at about like 3,000 followers. We don't have a lot of followers. But this is the future. Video is the future. I set up cameras. I got decent cameras for the road. Look, this is just the way that we're going to do things. So head on over there. Politics. If you want to get short form clips of the show, you can get them on YouTube Shorts, but also they're going to be on TikTok, Justin R. Young. They're going to be on X at Justin R. Young. If you want to hit me with a one-time donation, paypal.me/payjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. You can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Look, I think Venmo is the easiest to send you guys something back. If you send me, I'm in Vegas right now. If you Venmo me something over the next 48 hours, I will bet it. Just so you know. Maybe it's on a slot. Maybe it's on cards. Maybe it's in the sports book. But I'll bet every dime you guys send me over the next 48 hours. And we'll see. And I'll tell you if I won or lost. How's that? It's pretty good. You can also get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Either $3 a week, which is essentially what it is. It's billed 12 monthly, or $99 for the entire year. That's like less than $1 an episode for the 150 plus episodes that you get with that. However, there's only one place where you get your name read at the end of the show, and that is the foundational tier, which goes as follows: Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes. Oh yeah, it's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, A Dog Named Checkers, Gloria, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. You want your name? Huh? You want your name on the show? Well, come on down, friend. The water's fine. Next week, I have no idea. Man, we're all up in the air. ChatGPT 5 came out yesterday. I'm in San Francisco this week. Connect the dots. We'll figure it out. It's going to be great. Till then, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, still more discuss politics, but this is the only show that dares discuss. Oh! 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.